Hello, I'm Eric Matisik, co-chair of Denver Startup Week. Last year, we were able to bring the global audience together for Denver Startup Week, and this year, we're excited to welcome that global audience back as we celebrate and showcase the best of entrepreneurship that the Denver ecosystem in Colorado has to offer, in Denver and beyond. There are lots to explore this week, but most importantly, we're excited that you're joining us. We have nearly 50 sponsor companies who contribute to make Denver Startup Week possible. Let's show our love for these companies today and all week long. Thanks to our headquarters and title sponsor, Amazon, and our title sponsors whose leadership makes this week come to life, Capital One Cafe, the Downtown Denver Partnership, Fluid Truck, Hotel Engine, and WeWork, and our track sponsors who've made all the great content you're hearing today possible, which includes our founder track sponsor, Kickstart, our growth track sponsor, Friday Health Plans, developer track sponsor, Quizlet, product track sponsor, Palantir, design track sponsor, Battery 621 and the Public Works, people track sponsor, Exactly, and the spotlight event sponsor, Strat Labs. Our headline event sponsors are bringing this excitement to the entire week. Thank you to B-Side Fund, Colorado Public Radio, Comcast, Coors Brewing Company, Denver Pavilions, Entrepreneurship at the University of Denver, Gusto, JP Morgan Chase, Method, Moss Adams, Pi Insurance, Promontory Mortgage Path, Red Bull Basement, Southwest, Tattered Cover, and the VF Venture Foundry. Finally, thank you to our sponsors and member sponsors who are listed on the screen, and thank you for your support of Denver Startup Week. Now, let's get to it.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Denver Startup Week. I am Michael Ostro, and I'm the Maker Track Chair, as well as a member of the Denver Startup Week Organizing Committee. Thank you so much for joining Denver Startup Week for our 10th anniversary. At Denver Startup Week, we strive to make all of our sessions a place where attendees can connect, learn, and grow, and that is regardless of age, gender identity, gender expression, race, ability, or sexual orientation. A special thank you goes out to our sponsors for their support and helping us make Denver Startup Week free for everyone and accessible to all. And I also want to thank Agora.io. They are the MakerTrack sponsor, so thank you, Agora, for making this happen. And thank you for joining us. Enjoy Denver Startup Week and make the most out of it.
Cool. Hey, and welcome to the Maker Track, as well as Colorado Sake Company. This is William Stewart, and William Stewart is the founder of Colorado Sake Company. This session, we're going to talk about funding, how to grow your business exponentially, and then there's also a lot of things that come up when your business is growing. We're going to talk about some of those things that come up as well. Stuart, you were just sharing with me a small little story about Denver Startup Week a long time ago. Share with me, years ago, you sat down with a couple other panelists. How did that feel, and what kind of stuff did y'all talk about then?
Well, it felt great. I mean, Denver Startup Week is such an opportunity for people just starting off or people that are very developed in the business world. And first time we sat down, I was on a panelist of super large breweries and the owners and thinking, holy cow, this is such an opportunity to be with these people, talking to these people about products we make. And you almost feel like you've you're stepping into something where you've made it a little bit, and it was incredible.
That's so cool to hear. William's business has grown a lot since then, which makes it even more incredible to hear. So we're gonna actually jump into some of those things. So how did you actually get funding in the first place for your business?
So we did all the funding ourselves, right? We worked in restaurants, bars, and just took what we had saved up and did a couple years of R&D, but still worked at the same time to slowly fund everything. And then we just, whatever the business made is what we put back into it.
So you're saying this is a typical kind of side hustle when you're growing it?
Yeah, I mean, it was until we opened, yeah. And then once you opened, you dove right in, quit the jobs, and tried to figure it out.
Man,
right?
so what was the start? Like how big was the facility? How many employees?
Yeah, so when we first started off, we were 800 square feet in a back alley of subleasing from somebody else. And there was just the two of us. It was myself, Heather, my business partner. So we were the bartenders, the brewers, the salespeople, everything.
How was that experience? Like, how are you able to do so many different things?
Right. So experience was great because it teaches you what a dollar's worth, right? How do you make something instead of just buying something new? And as you grow and more money comes in, you still have that mindset of how do I save money?
Let's talk about that for a second, because there's a lot of companies that get a lot of money really quickly and they spend all this money. I remember chatting with you about how you were finding ways to get cheaper, you know, what I don't know what this is called.
Fermentation tanks.
Yeah, fermentation tanks. So explain that process, the value of the dollar. How did you end up figuring out how to spend your money appropriately?
Well, sake is a weird category where we can use some brewery equipment, we can use some winery equipment. So what falls in the middle and what can we make or find on Craigslist or MacGyver to make it work? And all of that just took time. And yeah, now we have nice shiny tanks.
Okay, cool. So you turned them into MacGyver for a little bit.
Yeah.
Were there other factors, learning the value of a dollar, that you really like had to scrimp by on?
Yeah. I mean, just paying yourself, right? I mean, you're not always the priority. The business is the priority. So sometimes you have to pay yourself less, and sometimes when you bring employees on, you still pay yourself less. But how do you ultimately grow this business? And you know that dollar's, there's ROI in the end of it. And in the beginning, it's your baby, it's your hustle, and that's what we did.
So is this like, it's my baby, no matter what happens, I'm gonna keep it? Or were there times where the funding was getting really, really small and you didn't know if you could continue?
Yeah, I mean, people always ask me, what would be the fail point? Like, how would you guys end up failing? I said, we wouldn't. In my head, there's no way we're gonna fail. If it gets tight, we figure it out. But I don't foresee that, because my mindset is to grow, to run, and how do we accomplish this goal of growing a company and hiring employees?
So what was the first expansion that y'all actually did?
Yeah, so we were in that 800 square feet for 9 months, and then we moved into 4,000 square feet, and that 4,000 square feet took us to understanding how to make $1 per square foot, right? So where the brewery was, we opened a comedy club. Where the front was, doing Facebook ads, getting people in the door, and then we get to the point of a pandemic, and we're growing, and then a pandemic hits, and everybody freaks out, right? Laying off employees. What do you do? Do you get a second job? And then it's just spending time sitting there on a computer with your team saying, how do we do this?
Okay, so you're in that state. How do we do this? What's going on through your head? What are you figuring out?
Holy crap, Is this it? And that was before the government came out and said, we're going to help you guys and give you funding. So, I mean, I sat down with social media guy, our social media head, Josh, and sat on the computer, recreated the entire website, online platform. And then we came up with sushi classes at home so we could do date night, deliveries, everything we could do to promote ourselves. And being that online platform just brought more attention to us for when everything reopened. And it was, I mean, now we're really busy, but throughout that process, then the government comes in and offers PPP loans, EIDL loans, grants. And I mean, it's like the government helped us. They were our investor.
So was that a saving grace? Were you really, really afraid at that time? And then when you saw the PPP loans, you saw the government assistance?
I can work 100 hours a week. So I wasn't super scared, but I also am scared for employees, right? I mean, I don't want everybody to, once they came out and said unemployment's here and all the things to help everyone, then it felt like we were all in it together. But in the beginning, it was just, scary. You don't know what to do. Nobody's giving you answers.
So I know we're talking about funding, but I'm sure there might be some other brewers or breweries listening. Maybe they're newer breweries, and they're wondering about this promotion stuff you're talking about, because you're trying to figure out other ways to get people into your business. right? Like you want the funding, but you also want people to buy your stuff.
Yeah.
So you've tried way more things than I've seen a lot of places try, and the comedy thing was successful. There's so many things that go really well. How do you come up with those ideas?
So it's dollar per square foot. I just always think that how can we improve our weeknights? How can we improve the weekends? What are we doing wrong? What can we improve on? Google reviews. I mean, we're all in the game trying to get good reviews, trying to get people in the door, and Facebook ads and, Instagram, beautiful pictures. We're all chasing the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So share with me as well, you were talking about the online platform that you created. What did you do with that online platform initially?
Initially we were thinking of doing a sake pairing, and the government said you can't reopen unless you have food. And so then we said, okay, let's get a little food aspect. And then we started thinking, why don't we do sushi classes? And then why don't we do virtual sushi classes? Give people a date night. And so then we started delivering all these kits across Colorado. Local news was picking it up. Our sales were the same as they were before the pandemic because of that online platform. It was a lot, but it was awesome.
That's great. That's really good to hear, first of all, because I was worried. I was like, oh, one Colorado sake company to keep going.
Yeah.
So what were you doing? Selling a kit with sake inside of it too?
Yeah. We found a weird loophole where in Colorado we're a winery, so we can deliver to people's doorsteps where breweries can't do that.
I was wondering. Okay. Yeah. So you're a winery. There are also some regulations with it being a brewery, but that's what you're saying, like the classification.
Yep.
Okay.
It gave us an awesome loophole. So we were making, 20 to 40 deliveries every single day, but that's me driving around, and it was worth it. And we gave people jobs. We hired people. It was during a time where everyone was laid off.
So you're actually driving around doing this.
Yeah.
So are there any other ways that you were looking to sell the product that were unique during this time?
Yeah. I mean, we started shipping to people's doorsteps outside of the state, and we started doing the comedy shows back outside. It's where you could sell sake, and it was an outdoor event, but nobody could be inside. So we're just trying to figure out ways to not only make us money, comedians money, the staff money. How do we keep everybody from sinking? Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. And you're also talking about doing some promotions, doing Facebook ads, figuring out ways to get people in here. So is some of the funding going into that? How do you end up splitting up the funding?
So up to the last 4 months, there was no funding. It was just, we were taking revenue and turning it into, like, taking whatever would be profit, spend it back in, and just keep growing the business. And then, Uncle Sam helped out a little bit, and yes, it was great, and took some of that money and, bought tanks. It allowed us to expand because we're growing so fast that it's either you slow down and you grow with the money you have, or you need to find money to grow fast. And that's the position we're in now. Then it's like, what avenue do you go down? Do you go down VC money? Do you go down friends and family? Do you do crowdfunding? And we've talked to all the avenues, and we ended up going with crowdfunding.
Yeah, let's hear a little bit more about that. So we had the government assistance, and then we moved forward a little bit into we need another round of funding. How did you decide on crowdfunding?
Main thing for us was how, we know what we're doing, and we're growing a company. And when you talk to VC guys, they want to have inputs, they want to change things, but we know what's working. We just need money. And if you don't have a house for collateral, you're not going to get a bank loan. So then we thought, how do we do this and give back to the people that have supported us for the last few years? And that's crowdfunding and giving them shares of the company. Not only do they become regulars for life, they tell people about us, they love us, and we're going to make them money. And that's the ultimate goal.
Okay, so what platform did you end up choosing? How do you figure this out?
Yeah, so we went through a couple different platforms. We chose Start Engine. We think that they do really well with beverage and their beverage sector. And we launched 3 months ago, and in the last 3 months, we raised $500,000, and it's awesome.
So you raised $500,000. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
So are there some new ideas, like some expansion routes that you have to go through? I'm sure there were pains before that and probably during that time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, expansion as a company. Yeah, I mean, now we're in 10,000 square feet for production, and over there is 4,000 square feet. So we're growing, and then figuring out what to do with the money, and still how do you do it cheap, right? Because if we just spend this money on new things, it's going to go quick. So we're still building things. We're still DIYing almost everything, but it allows us to get tanks this is what we need to make our process better. And we need employees. This is the employees we can hire, and we get more quality employees because we have money now. And it's ultimately just grown the business, made the product better, and we're in a great place. Yeah.
Do you think the MacGyver approach that you're sharing
Yeah.
is still extremely helpful? You're sharing that you're still figuring out the DIY. Like, do you feel like if you had a lot of revenue, it might be wasted in places if you didn't have that DIY coming up?
I mean, if someone gave me $10 million tomorrow, I wouldn't be doing DIY things, but that hasn't happened yet. So we still need to be smart. We were smart up to this point. It worked. Let's continue that until it doesn't. I mean, until we hit the point where the revenue is coming in where I can just buy it new. But until that point, I think we're just running as fast as we can.
So, I want to jump back just a little bit and talk about the expansion.
Yeah.
Because I think there might be, like I said, some breweries listening and some people listening trying to understand expansion. So, we've chatted about it, but your first expansion, your first size place was 800 square feet.
Yep.
And then you went through an expansion, but how did you find the other place?
Yeah. So the other space was, we were subleasing from them, and then they said, we're not going to renew our lease. And we said, perfect. We were looking at space. We thought, how are we going to do this financially? And it just worked that we just took over the rest of the space. I mean, it couldn't have been better. And same with this space, nice realtor in the Rhino Arts District in Denver. And he was like, I got a space. Let's get this space. Here you go. Short-term lease, but let's go as quick as possible. And that's why we're just running with what we have. And the next space will be twice as big.
So how long have you been in this warehouse?
5 months, 6 months. Yeah.
Okay.
And everything is, we spent a month just building it out, 12 hours a day, swinging a hammer. And now we're finally built and just fixing little things, but now we're starting to hum. Now we're starting to see what we could have done a year ago if we would have had the means to do it.
Okay. Well, good to hear about the humming, getting in the right position. Let's talk about some of those pains that happened.
Yeah.
So what were some of the pains transitioning from the last place to this place?
I mean, there's everything, right? The pains are, we have a lot of pains as far as growth and how do you keep employees around you if you're growing unsustainably. And we're growing so fast that we're realizing now we have to hire people around our team so that people don't get overworked and treat them like, more of that human being aspect of, work your 40, get out. And growing pains is definitely staffing. I mean, even staffing during the pandemic, we're still trying to hire people and we can't do it. And I think hopefully that turns around soon.
What are some of your thoughts behind that? Are people still getting unemployment? I don't even know. Or is it just hard because they can go work somewhere else? What's the difficulty in hiring?
I think it's a lot of things, right? The hospitality industry is so many, 11% of the nation is in hospitality. But if 1% of that doesn't want to go back to work, doesn't want to face people because of the virus, then that's a huge percentage out. Now people can choose jobs. They can work 2 days and say, I want to go find something different. So people switching industries, and then it leaves hospitality hurting.
Yeah. You're also sharing that, when you're growing, people are working longer hours. It takes a lot of time to train people and get them, attenuated to everything that they need to do.
Right.
Would you say that during the growth period, people are leaving because it was just too much work to handle? What were some of the struggles? Like, how many people ended up leaving during that growth period?
So during the growth period, we probably lost 3 or 4 people. And so we had to sit back and say, okay, how do we retain people, right? We have the potential to grow really quickly, but how do we not overwork people? And so what we're going to do is New Belgium did a concept of employee ownership. And so that's the goal of what we want to do here is get our employees ownership so that as we grow, they see the dollar signs as well. Because if we're just seeing it, nobody's going to want to give you extra. And we want people to want to give extra. We don't want to, push people to do it. And so that's the idea is if we can give everyone ownership, if there is a day where there's an acquisition or revenue distribution, then they get a piece of the pie as well.
Excellent. You were just sharing with me actually pretty recently that you switched some employees or you lost some and you just went through another hiring round.
Yeah.
What does that mean for you?
A lot of work, right? Yeah. Too much work. And so we've, last 8 weeks, I was probably 100 hours a week, sleeping here half the time, just trying to not run out of sake. And that's probably the hardest thing is if you put someone in build a team and develop people around you so that if you lose one, you're not going to sink. And that's what happened to us is we lost one that was pretty crucial to the process as we were bringing on other employees. But then it leaves me that knows sake and I got to teach all these people. And that was a lot of work.
Okay, explain that. So I know you're saying no sake, but I'm thinking there's this giant vats of sake.
Yeah.
How do you have no sake at some point?
So these are new. So we were in smaller tanks before, just staying afloat. And then these came up used that were a fourth of the cost of what they are new. So bought them, brought them here. We're finally just getting out of these tanks. So now we have sake. we were just barely getting by. And so it's that growth, right? Sales versus production, who's going to win? And I've been losing really hard to the sales team. And so that's what we're trying to change. Now, hopefully I can say, why aren't you selling more? Right?
You've shared with me for such a long time that it's hard to keep up with the demand for sake,
Yeah.
which I don't think a lot of businesses have.
Yeah, no, it's super challenging. I mean, sake takes so long to make, and it's such an art that we can't pump it out fast. We can't speed up the process. So we just need to grow a team to make sure that we can make enough. And that's what we're doing. And now we're talking about other states. How do we get distribution in other states? And it's a leap that's scary, but I think we can do it.
Okay, I want to hear a little bit more about that. Share with me what your thoughts are on expansion. What's your next step?
Next step is, we've saturated Colorado. So you've got two places. Do you saturate the states around you so that it's like people around us love Colorado sake? Do you go for the low-hanging fruit, California, New York, Texas, Chicago? And I think for us, we think about it as get your surrounding states, have a footprint in the center of the country, because we'll never get to the size where we can have 50 states. I mean, that would be a 100,000 square foot facility, so hopefully someone comes along the way and, helps us out with a massive amount of funding, and then we'll take it nationwide. Right now we're getting through the process of Dominican Republic, just because they reached out to us. Sounds really cool. Love to get outside the country. And and then we just had someone reach out about getting us into like 15 states, but are we ready? And I don't want to put the cart before the horse, because let's get in these tanks, let's figure out what's happening, and let's see a surplus for a second. Yeah.
So when you're sharing, I'm just trying to get my mind wrapped around it. You're in Colorado, you feel it's pretty saturated, and then there's going to be more growth slowly outside of these states, and that's how your growth is going to expand. You're not thinking 15 states, I'm going to go to New York.
Right.
You're thinking every state around.
I'm thinking, Kansas, Wyoming, Texas is really close. There's other breweries that do not saturate their state first and think we need to get outside the state, and I'll be in 15 states, but does it sell? We sell a case to a liquor store. I don't think about that as a sale until they reorder, because what's the sell through? And most of these other companies are getting to 7, 15. I talked to a couple sake brewers that are in 15 states, 7 states. But if you're in California, you've got 50 million people. Like I couldn't supply that right now. And so it's just thinking about it. How do you saturate? How do you sell in your own market and get the support? This flies great. How do you get the support and then turn it around and somehow think about a bigger picture? Because we're all just trying to figure it out.
Okay, well, I think this is actually a point of expansion maybe we haven't chatted about yet.
Okay.
So we understand that you had your, a local place, you're selling sake inside, but you had to figure out how to distribute to liquor stores.
Yeah.
And then you said you've saturated Colorado. That's a huge step.
Yeah. We're, first year we had maybe 25 accounts, and now we're at over 400 accounts. And so, but distribution companies want 30% off the top. So we thought, we're not going to give that to you. We just built all these accounts. There's a delivery service in Colorado where they're a distribution company, but they just deliver. There's no sales reps. So instead of 30%, it's 6%. So our sales reps go out, sell the product. They just take it.
This is the MacGyver approach. This is the DIY approach. Yeah. That's a huge profit margin that you just created.
I know. Yeah. I didn't want to lose that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially during pandemic, right? When you're, everything goes to liquor stores, and I'm giving them 30% when we're going to a liquor store. And so it's been a good growth, and now it's just choosing the path from here.
Yeah, when you're sharing the path, I understand you're saying states close to here. Is that because of shipping costs, like figuring out how to get there, logistics and stuff?
I think it's just the support. Your local states around you support Colorado, right? And I think that's where we'll hit home. If we were in California, we'd have to have a whole marketing play for California. A lot of Facebook ads, a lot of Instagram ads, just to get it in people's faces, and then go to liquor stores that know nothing about Colorado. Where Texas, this is like vacation place for Texas people. Or Kansas, same thing. And how do we then go into that market where we can get to closely and also go sell our product and help drive revenue?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I do want to ask for a moment, are there questions that are coming in? And if you are asking questions, or if you have questions in your mind, feel free to type them in, because we'll have a moment that we will go through some Q&A.
5 minutes.
Perfect.
Cool. Well, let's crack this. Cheers. And then see if there's any questions.
I've been wanting to try this for a long time.
Sake seltzer, world's first sake seltzer.
Sake seltzer.
Perfect.
It's really good.
Right?
What flavor is this?
Yuzu ginger. Yuzu's like an orange lime hybrid from Japan.
Yeah, I've had a yuzu beer before, so
Yeah.
this is really good. It's
Yeah.
so much lighter.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's the goal, right? Seltzer is a category we haven't, right? If you're going into a liquor store and you're going to get sake, you're probably going there looking for sake, right? Unless it's impulse sales where that's why Home Depot puts things that don't sell in the front and then everything else in the back, like plumbing or electrical, because you're going to pass by it, right? So some of our liquor stores put sake right up front and it gets sold like crazy. But if it's in the back corner, you're looking for sake. So how do we change the market and say, okay, if you're going to drink seltzers, I want you to try a sake seltzer and then talk about sake. And then maybe you go buy sake bottles. But this is a good intro, a good way to promote sake across the nation.
cool. Oftentimes when I think about Colorado Sake Company, I think in the brilliance of marketing. Just for example, the setup, how everything's like, shown. Just a Zoom meeting is exponential. Like you do a really good job at it. Every piece of marketing that you do is incredible. Like your thoughts about getting this out into the liquor store is incredible.
Yeah. I mean, how do you grow an industry? Like sake is growing, 12, 15% year after year. And that's because we're eating more sushi, eating more Japanese food, eating more Asian culture in a whole. But how do we tell you that this can be paired with other things? And getting in that seltzer market is probably the best way for us to do it.
And this will be in the seltzer section?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Excellent.
So this is in 75 liquor stores. People are drinking it. I can't make enough of it.
You can't make enough. You're back in the bar,
Yeah.
or you can't make enough. This takes longer than just making sake itself, right?
So this one is sake, but sake takes a long time. But this is our first time going into a 12 pack instead of a bottle. So this one you buy one bottle. This one you're buying 12. Just it's more volume.
Excellent.
So
Yeah,
it's
that
good
makes
stuff.
sense.
Yeah.
Are there questions coming in from anyone?
No. Perfect.
Excellent. If you get some, feel free to ask it. I know, William, I've been asking you a lot of questions, and we've been talking about growth and expansion. Are there some other points that we didn't necessarily touch on that you did want to touch on?
I mean, I just think funding, right? If everybody thinks about funding and thinks of a way to get funding, it's not always, if you don't have a house, you're not going to get it through a bank, right? Because you can't use that as collateral. Same with the SBA. You need a decent chunk of cash if you don't have a house to get it going. But you could also start things with very little money. And the school of YouTube today can teach you how to do things, how to build things, how to make things. And there's funding out there. It's just a challenge and a long road to figure it out.
So what you're saying is figure out a way to get some funding. And then while you're building your business, while you're doing all the DIY things, you don't need everything handed to you, figure it out. And then funding will start coming if you're building a good product and a good company.
Yeah. And you always product first, right? If the product's first, everything else will happen for you. And just giving people a good time, making sure that every night at the tasting room, we're throwing a party and we're the host and everybody should enjoy it. And that's the goal. And that's what we do every day. Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, cheers again.
Cheers, William.
Cool.
Thank you everyone for joining today's session. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. Again, this is William from Colorado Sake Company.
Yeah. Thanks for joining.